Welcome to She Sells Radio. I have a very special, unique interview for you today where I'm bringing back two of my most popular past guests, Richard Harris and John Barrows, to talk about something that we've actually never talked about on the podcast before, which is AI and sales. And if you are either a client of mine or a long-term listener, you probably know that my personal passions are really more around helping you master the inner game of sales and business. So that's what we talk about a lot here on the show. But with that said, if you listened into episode 300, you heard me talk about how just committed I am right now to following the nudges, being of service wherever I feel I can be of service and wherever I'm led. And lately, I've just been bombarded with so many questions and opportunities around AI, specifically in sales. And so I followed that nudge. And I wanted to bring you two real experts on that topic today. So in a moment, I'm going to let Richard and John introduce themselves to you directly. But if you want their full backstories and some really, really great sales interview content, you can listen to episode 157 for my full interview with John Barrows, and then episode 193 for my full interview with Richard Harris. And I know both of these guys through the Salesforce Sales Influencers program. I reached out to both of them directly to ask that they come on and speak about this topic because they're both really, I've watched them both be on the forefront of helping their clients keep up with such a rapidly evolving business and sales climate like we're in today, and teaching their clients how to implement AI in really powerful ways to both grow their value in the marketplace as well as their revenue. So John, Richard, welcome to She Sells Radio. Welcome back to She Sells Radio to both of you, I should say.
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And John, we've both hosted about 400 episodes of our podcast. I don't think I've ever heard a better natural introduction.
Natural. I was just gonna say, like, without reading a script or anything, that was
like that was like so good. I'm so jealous.
Oh my gosh. No,
Elise, what's our parameters around language? John and I love to get into debates, and we might, get a little aggressive, and we want to be mindful to your audience.
We'll put what's the E? We'll just put the E next to this episode. I don't know. It's fine. You all you do you here on the show. It's all good. That's why I'm really excited for this. And I'm going to kind of step back. I'm going to ask some questions, but I really want you guys to have the floor here. Just because, like I said, this is something that I've been getting a lot of questions on. It's not something I've been super focused on with my clients. And I've just watched you two really, really pioneer a lot of things, do a lot of thought leadership in this space. And so I'm excited to learn from both of you today too. So why don't we start with just super quick, who you are, what you're all about before we dive in case somebody hasn't listened to the past episodes. So John, I see you first on my screen. I'll just have you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what you're all about if somebody's not familiar. And then Richard, will turn it over to you.
Sure. John Barrows, CEO of JB Sales, just relaunched. And I would do sales training. I work with some of the cool clients like Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, training all their reps on tactical stuff to try to stay ahead, execute today, and also prepare them for what's coming tomorrow, which is rapidly arriving.
Awesome. Richard?
Yeah. Richard Harris from the Harris Consulting Group and Surf and Sales. Go-to-market strategies similar to John, and I teach reps how to earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask, and when. John and I do overlap. People often wonder, but we're very, very good friends. Last year we had a nice Warriors Celtics bet, and I won, and this year we won't. For those listening, I will say this, that we're not even frenemies, we're friends, and it's okay to be competitive with your friends. It's cool.
Mm.
Absolutely.
I think that's where a lot of this conversation will come into. You'll feel that. So
I'm excited. Yeah, it was like an intuitive nudge, get them both on the show together. So I'm excited to see what'll come out of this and to get both of your perspectives on things. So one quick thing I will say, because for you as a listener, you can obviously hear both John and Richard are very heavily involved with working with sales teams, sales companies. And I know we have both sales professionals and entrepreneurs who listen to this show. So I just want to tee it up that regardless of whether you're a sales leader, sales professional, an entrepreneur, you want to be really thinking about this and listening in on this, because you're going to get, I already know I've got my paper, pen out here. I know you're going to get ideas for things you can be doing, even if you're an entrepreneur, to implement this in your business and things you should be thinking about. So with that, gosh, let's get into it. Like, let's just start off with, what are some of the biggest ways right now? So as we record this is May 2023. So I think it's important to maybe put a timestamp on that, because I know this will be shifting and changing as we go. A lot of times I do evergreen episodes, but I do want to note, like, this is obviously a very evolving topic as we speak. But May 2023, what are some of the biggest ways right now and biggest use cases that you're seeing for AI that you're working on implementing with your clients? And I don't want to be like, I don't want to necessarily referee who starts first. I'll start here with Richard, John, jump in, and then I want it to be like a natural dialogue kind of from there. So Richard, you want to share what you're seeing going on?
I mean, I think it's been slowly progressing. I think to some extent it was a little bit even before Chat GPT. Like, I think the efficiency piece came, and that wasn't AI per se, but that's where I think it happened. That's where it started, right? With just the sales enablement platforms. And then, of course, natural progression is how do we make it smarter, right? How do we make it better and work faster? And so right now, what I see and hear the most is around, prospecting activities, right? Those kind of things. That's a piece. There was and still is this understanding and analyzing the psychology of an individual, right? Like, there's so many tools out there now that will go tell us, how does Elise think? How does Richard think? How does John think? And how to talk to them. Like, that was sort of version 1. Now with AI, it will actually do a much better job of helping you write something in a way that Elise will want to interpret it, most likely, or John. And that's the big piece. And you can use that at all parts of the funnel. Right now, we hear about it at prospecting, but I would still want to do that, in a first sales call, post first sales call, meeting notes, if I'm being introduced to a new person, if running a demo, or if they're going to go into a POC or something like that. I would still use those tools now, because I could better write those kinds of things. And you can also start to use it now. How do I negotiate with procurement? Like, you can find different ways to use it in a different place. And I'm just starting to see tools, I only know of one so far, that can actually do call coaching. So if you've got a remote sales team, right, and you can't coach all the time, this tool will do that. And that, to me, is super impressive. But
Interesting.
So I'll pause there and let John jump in.
Yeah. I mean, all those, I would probably summarize it right now with research, writing, and follow-up are probably the 3 biggest use cases that I would see. One is research, right? Where we used to have to go to somebody's website, look at their social profile, look at all these different tools to find some relevant reasons to reach out to them. Now with tools like ChatGPT, maybe not ChatGPT because it is time-stamped for I think 2021, but there's a lot of them that are plugging in tools like ChatGPT into another AI model and unleashing it on the ability to do research, like really good research on accounts. So as far as preparation, you could even take, for instance, somebody's 10K or annual report and, copy paste it into ChatGPT and say, hey, summarize this for me with the key takeaways. And so now I can use that to, be more educated with my outreach when it comes to prospecting, or as I prepare for a meeting. So I think that's one piece of it. The other piece is writing. As Richard said, it's real good. It's good. It's not great, but I think I'm glad that it's not great, because I want AI to do the majority of the heavy lifting for me, but I want to be the last mile as a sales rep before it goes out the door. So, and that's whether that's an email or a podcast, or a blog or a LinkedIn post. You can still tell when the AI bot is writing these things.
So John, what's an example there? Because how do you know that it's better to have the human piece, right?
I guess it does actually. I'll take that back. It doesn't matter to me. It in general, I think it matters if you are your brand and you have a voice out there. And the reason I say that is because when I write, I've done more than a few examples on LinkedIn where I've posted a pure AI, right? And it's obvious that it's not me, because people know my voice, people know my brand. It's close, and I think it'll absolutely get better, right? By the time it ingests all the information of me, I could take every podcast and I could take every video I've ever done and put it into the system. And I haven't spent the time to do that yet, but I'm pretty convinced it'll start to write stuff that sounds really, very close to me. I mean, I just posted this last week on Friday just for some fun, which was the AI version of me, right? It's an avatar that talks like me, kind of looks like me. And we did that all with free tools. And so if you take the next leap and you say, okay, well, if we paid for a few tools and we waited a month or two, I mean, you're going to get a full-on AI version of John Barrows that looks exactly like me and sounds like me. And the question is where's the content going to come from, right? And I think this is something Gary Vaynerchuk brought up recently, what I thought was fascinating, which this is because I always wondered, like, blockchain and Bitcoin and all that stuff, like, okay, like, who gives a shit, right? Like, just because somebody knows where it's coming from, like, I could still have my image of an NFT, and who's going to call the blockchain police on somebody, right? But what he said was, now with original artists, they can put their content on the blockchain to genuinely prove that it is theirs. And therefore, anybody taking information, ChatGPT included, from it is going to have some type of accountability. So I think that's where we're going with this. But we're not there yet. But man, like, I quite frankly think, and the reason I posted that on Friday is because it's going to be real interesting where this goes as far as trust is concerned. Because right now, you put the thing that I'm scared about a little bit is people are putting information into ChatGPT and then they're taking the information out of it and treating it as gospel, right? They're like, okay, that's the answer. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you source check this? Did you find out where this comes from? And I mean, shit, at least half the internet's total crap, right? It's total fake news. And so it's pulling information that is telling people, and then all of a sudden they're just regurgitating it. So again, we've missed the foundational piece of education of a lot of these reps. Like, where I think we've been in the game for a long time, the three of us, there's some context to it. So there's a foundation of understanding how to use these tools and to make us better. Whereas reps who are coming right in, or individuals who are coming right into this AI world, that's where they're starting. They're not starting with the foundation. They're not starting with the fundamentals. They're starting with the AI tool. And I guess if you use that to be curious, to learn, to then execute, then great. But I don't think most people are. I think most people are just using it to create operational efficiencies, to be better than they would be, right? Because let's face it, like, AI right now is better than probably 85% of the reps I come in contact with. I mean,
are you seeing the same, Richard?
Yeah, I think so too. And so it's interesting. I was listening to John and I thought, the two roles, if I were thinking about going into sales in some way, the two things I would probably start to look at more is one, revenue operations, because you still need someone to come. And that's like, if you think about what John's saying, as a sales rep, if I'm using it and aggregating all this data and information from message, I need to take an ops perspective of like, go back and like, let me just double check to make sure that sounds right. Like, that's the first thing. The other is sales leadership, because the biggest challenge I see with AI is that it makes leaders lazy. Already, we, C-levels and founders, particularly, in the SaaS startup world that a lot of us live in. I don't know about you, Elise. They think that salespeople are turnkey. They think that anybody can manage a salesperson, and they can't. And even when they learn that lesson, it takes them a long time. I mean, there's a reason that VPs of sales only last 16 to 18 months. It's because their leadership doesn't fucking understand what it takes. And so I think the AI is going to help at a certain level, but still that managing of a human, right, has to be a skill learned. And I think nobody's going to want to be completely managed by a machine. Nope. That's lonely and isolated and depressing.
So I think yes, but
by the way, it's not yes, but it's yes and. But means don't agree. Just say no.
All right. No, I guess. Well, I think, let me put it this way. Yes, I agree with you for the near term. I question that in the long term. And the reason I say that is because we're all at an age where none of us grew up with AI native. So we are always going to crave that human interaction. But my daughter's 12. Okay. On Snapchat, there's an AI function on Snapchat that is her AI friend. And what happens is, and thank God it doesn't prompt her automatically, she prompts it. So, but if she prompts it at the end of the day saying, hey, how you doing? It'll come back and say, great, how was your day? And then she engages and engages and engages. And the more she engages, the more it learns from her. And because it's on Snapchat, it learns her what she likes and what she doesn't like and all these different things. And it becomes an extremely empathetic and extremely friendly person to talk to. Now, if you marry some AI bots to that, in the sense of like video, right, where it's just an AI avatar who's talking to her as opposed to a chat. Now, let's think about her at school. And I'm not saying this is my daughter. My daughter's, pretty well adjusted. She doesn't get into this stuff. I've held her, but in general, say you're a kid and you're at school and you get picked on all the time. You get, called, whatever you get called, and you get picked on all the time. And then you go home and you start engaging with this AI bot who's super friendly, super nice, and super empathetic, and has a face to it. As we fast forward this out, how much are people going to really want to interact with people? That's the question I have right now. I think we are always going to crave interaction, but I'm curious about the 10 to 16-year-olds right now, 10 to 18-year-olds right now, who are trying to figure out this world in this such a fucked up spot, right? And getting picked on all over the place, getting harassed on social media, and getting probably not good feedback from parents or friends or colleagues or work or any of that stuff. And all of a sudden an AI bot was super nice and super knowledgeable can sit there with a bunch of answers. Right. Because my fear on the reason I posted that on Friday was, who would you rather talk to, John or Super John? Because I am one person and I have my own opinions, and you could take all of my content you've ever seen and put it into a bot. And then you could ask me. Not just that, you can take every single piece of content from Sandler, Richard Harris, winning by, every sales guru on the planet, and pump it through me. And it'll sound like I'm giving you the advice. So the question
becomes, I'm just fucking scared now. Like, now we're all gonna live in caves. Like, Jesus, like, God.
With our
am
AI
I wrong?
friends.
Am I wrong about that? Like, I
want you to be wrong about it. How's that for an answer?
I really hope I'm wrong about it, but I'm just watching what's happening in front of us right now, and I'm seeing how people engage, and they want to engage more and more with robots. I mean, there's a study that came out with Gartner that said the client wants, if you general out or average out millennials, Gen Z, and boomers, 43% want a rep-free experience. 43% of clients in B2B want a rep-free experience, and that doesn't include Gen Z. Now, the positive side of that, the benefit, or I guess the good news is that of those 43% that wanted a rep-free experience, they had a 23% higher regret rate. So they regretted the decision 23% more when they did not involve a sales rep. So that, to me, tells me there's a chance, right? We still are a vital part of the sales process. It's just, we got to change what that means. We got to change what value looks like. We got to figure out what we can do that a computer can't, and we have to engage at a human level. Because until computers buy from computers, there's still a chance. But once computers start buying from computers, then it's a totally different story. But I think there's still a chance. It's just, we got to keep evolving faster than ever now, because I think the days of the no value interaction from a client rep standpoint, I think those days are over. If you're not adding value in a conversation right now as a rep, then there's no chance I'm going to pay attention to you. If you're going to just drone through your BANT questions, drone through your stupid PowerPoint presentation and then throw a proposal at me, like I see zero benefit in a rep doing those things.
Yeah.
Richard, anything you want to add? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the part that I'm connecting with what John's saying, and I've been saying for a while, and I'm working on a book, is bringing that humanity back into sales, right? The 43% probably believe that because of all the bad experiences, right? Now, there is some value to, look, like, if I go to Best Buy, I go do my research before I show up, and then I go ask questions at the end, right? That's what I'm doing. In some cases right now, it also becomes interesting too, the piece that's accelerating this around this, not wanting a buyer, not wanting a salesperson, I believe is coming out of the pandemic, right? Everything shifted to Zoom and, good old fashioned, inside sales, right? People ask me all the time. I don't know if they asked you, John, like,
Oh yeah.
can you train my team on inside sales? I'm like, there's no fucking difference,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, there's no difference. And so now the buyer, their experience has changed. There's no such thing as a buyer's journey. Their experience has changed. And so they're more comfortable having these conversations of 50, 100, 200, 300 grand decisions. And they're realizing, oh my God, I don't have to travel. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. Office space. So that actually, I think, unintentionally has helped accelerate this AI piece on the back end from an experience perspective. So it's really kind of a couple of things that are happening into that Gartner study. And in my belief system, I don't know how, I'm sure Gartner has more data around it than I do, you know. But I can go, you guys talk, I'll go check out Bard or ChatGPT and
see what it says.
See what it tells.
But I mean, I think that's the thing to pay attention to, right? Is you know, what does value look like these days from a sales rep? What does it mean? Well, and that's exactly like I ask my client, I ask reps all the time, like, you got to ask yourself the question right now, what can you do that a computer can't? Because if you can't really answer that question, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? And if we look at, you know, research and writing emails and sending sequences, I mean, there's, let's put it this way, the reps who are, and I don't want to name names as far as, you know, tools are concerned, but the reps who are just using the standard email tools to send out emails that are templated based on what marketing is telling them to do and effectively acting like robots. There's tools out there with AI right now that can do it 1,000 times better. Do I agree with the automated approach? Do I agree with the mass emails and the mass LinkedIn connections? Absolutely not. But does an AI bot do it far better than any sales rep ever would? Hell yeah, they do. Hell yeah, they do. So,
and I take a different approach. I don't mind that stuff. I don't mind, like, if I can do it in a way that seems genuine and human.
Yep.
I don't mind scaling. Now, what I don't like is spray and pray.
Right.
That's a very different approach, right? And so, you know, for example, the one I'll talk about LinkedIn tools, because I use them all the time.
Yeah.
I can have a LinkedIn tool, go in, pull up someone's profile, look at it, and, you know, so if people like who looked at me, and then I can also a day later make it go like it, make it go and like some post. Just click on that button for it. But all of a sudden, I'm doing that. Now, the irony of that is sometimes it clicks on someone's post that's like 6 months ago. Well, here's the good news. If someone only posted 6 months ago, because it's the most recent post, do I care? No. What do I care? And if nobody's turned around and said, how dare you, did you use a bot? And they did, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I did. Yeah. You know, and I got your attention. See, it worked. Right. So well, I don't have a problem with some of that automation stuff. If it helps me get better at the job, and I know that it can help people, like, again, so John and I, you too, Elise, we all have a brand, right? We have a LinkedIn piece, and we do that from the goodness of our heart. We know to make more deposits than withdrawals. I can't remember who created that phrase. And so when we're putting out content, I don't mind using something like that, because the long game is, sure, maybe I'll get some business out of it. Sure. However, the content I'm putting out is meant to be helpful for people. So for me, it's worth it. If I'm a straight up traditional sales rep, then to what John said, some context needs to come into play.
Gosh, it's such a fine line. And it's interesting to hear both perspectives, because I've had some resistance around using any sort of automation tools there to like automate my content or put stuff out as me. And sometimes I'm like, well, gosh, is this just the way it's going to have to be if you're going to be successful at some point? I don't know. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Would you ever have someone guest or ghost write a blog post for you, and then you edit it and post it?
Good question. I have I do, I'd say 95% of my own writing right now. I do have a really awesome.
But think about it. And how much time does it take you to write a post?
Oh, totally. No, it takes, I mean, like, I'm with you. It takes a while.
So what's the difference between having a machine ghostwrite it and I edit it, and, you know, a person ghostwrite it and edit it? And in either of those cases, I've just created more time in my day to go do something else.
Right.
So again, it's this context piece and being mindful to not spray and pray, like in that sales perspective.
I mean, going back to your point, Richard, I agree with you as far as like, I don't mind the automation stuff. And I actually think it's going to ultimately be a good thing for us, but not a good thing for sales reps, especially front end of the pipeline sales reps. And the reason I say that is because right now, if you think of spam, right, the reason that none of us like spam is because it's usually completely irrelevant, right? It's crap that I have no interest in whatsoever.
Yep.
But why do I like Instagram? Well, I like Instagram because I've trained Instagram's algorithm, because I've thumbs up, thumbs down their ads. I like certain things. I don't like certain things. So now almost every ad that I get from Instagram is something I kind of want. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that before. That's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely. Right. So think about all the information that's out there about most of us, right? We got our LinkedIn profile, we got our social networks, we got all this public information about us. Who's to say, and there's already a bot that, stuff that does this, that they can't go out and find hyper relevant, hyper, personalized stuff and make a connection to the value proposition of a business based on those things. And so I think actually maybe in a year, our inboxes are going to be full, but our inboxes are going to be full with shit that we actually think is good and relevant and something I might want. And quite frankly, do I care on whether or not a human sent that to me? And the answer to that one's absolutely not. I could give a shit of the email, the cold call that left a voicemail that got me to think about something, the LinkedIn share, like based on something else. Like, I don't care if that's a human. I care if it's a human once I want to talk to somebody. That's the part I care about. But to get my attention and introduce a new product, service, solution to me, I could give a shit if it's a sales rep or not, which is why I think it's scary for sales reps, specifically on the front end of the pipeline.
So
I agree on the front end. I think I'm going to jump in here. At least
go ahead.
The podcast episode, right?
I'm gonna just sit back. I'm gonna sit back and let you guys go. Yeah,
so
go ahead.
This is the part, and I don't think people talk about it, and people don't know how to. And maybe John, or maybe the three of us should do something. If I'm a sales rep, if I'm an SDR, the one thing, and I bet we all might agree on this, is how would I use AI right now to build my brand? I would absolutely have it helping write some posts as an SDR and start posting on LinkedIn. I would help it do those things, post about the topics. If I'm an SDR and I don't know anything about the industry, I'm going to have it write some posts about the industry. And I guess, yes, I'm going to audit it and those things. But that to me is where AI can really help salespeople. And over time, the thing I do like about AI as a whole is that our EQ goes up. We learn things, we figure things out, we can write things, we can learn to be more empathetic because we can get to better knowledge to understand. So that would be the one thing I would tell people they need to do, is they should start working on their brand, because I think I don't have my business without my brand. I just, right. And I got lucky when I got started, and I had someone like John there to kick me in the ass to say, just go do this, Richard, you can do it. However, I still had to figure out some of the other stuff along the way. So the brand would be the big thing.
That it ties in with the question I was going to ask both of you, because I think it's interesting to see how this conversation unfolds. And to me, it feels like there's kind of these two different categories I want to touch on today through the rest of our conversation. One is, okay, what are the highlights? We talked a little bit of like bad news of where we see it potentially going, but what are the highlights and use cases for both SDR, someone in sales, as well as I want to hear for both of you as entrepreneurs, how are you using it? And then two, I think, John, it was to your point of like, what does value look like now? And how do we, Richard, like with the book that you're writing, humanizing the process? So I think let's talk good part of AI. Let's talk bit like, especially for, I think it would be interesting to hear for both of you as entrepreneurs, how you're using it right now in your business. Richard, you mentioned some already with LinkedIn, but let's talk that. And then we'll come back to the human element from there. So who wants to share some of the tools, the tips, the things that you're seeing it do well for you right now in business?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I think it's I think it's a lot about the efficiency stuff, right? It's research, it's curiosity. One of the things that Richard says he's writing a book. I was, I'm still going to write a book, but I was sitting on it for a long time. And I'll give you an example. And I had the chapter layouts if I wanted it. And one of them was, first one is the history of sales, like a brief history of sales, just so people have context, because, our friend Todd Capone always jokes around about how, like, literally what's happening right now happened back in 1914, whether you believe it or not, right? There was a whole thing of, is the, newspaper gonna, replace the sales rep or something like that. It's like, holy shit, right? So there's innovation all over the place. And I didn't know from a history standpoint, I know a little bit about sales history, but I don't know a ton. And so all I did was type into ChatGPT, hey, write a story, write a chapter of a book called This is Sales, coming from John Barrows, LinkedIn profile here, and talk about the history of sales starting at 1918 and going up to present day and hitting these milestones. And it wrote something and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, this is stuff. This is fascinating. Like, I never knew that. And it forced me to go be curious, to go learn more about it and to make sure it was validated and everything else. So I think anything like a starter pack, if you will, like if you're trying to get started doing anything, I think AI is the place I would start. Even as stupid as this sounds, people like, well, how can I use AI to be more effective in my business? Well, guess who you should ask that question to? ChatGPT. Like, dead serious. Say, hey, I am a sales rep and this is my role and this is the company I work for. I'm trying to figure out how to use ChatGPT to be effective. How should I use it? And it will tell you. It will straight up tell you. And so I think those, writing emails and getting it almost there before it goes out the door is great. Doing research on accounts, I think is fantastic. And then just having fun with it. I mean, my recommendation for everybody right now is just start playing around with it. It doesn't matter what you're doing, just understand how prompts work, because that's going to be the key. It's not going to be who writes well. It's whoever comes up with the better prompts and tells the machine what to do, because the more specific you are with what you're telling it to do, the better answers you get. And so that's why I think just go in there and start asking it to write a song for you, create a poem, do a love letter to your wife or husband or significant other. You know what I mean? And
don't
just
do that one. Don't do that one.
Well,
day after Mother's Day, John Barrows. How was Mother's Day in your house, John?
This is a sidebar, but did you ever? There's a South Park episode where one of the kids is, all of a sudden, Cartman's all pissed off because one of these kids is getting all the girls to be attracted to him. And Cartman's like, what the hell? And he's like, because he's chatting back and forth, texting her. And he's like, just watch. He's like, every time she texts me, I copy, paste that and put it into ChatGPT and say, give me a response. It gives him a response. He cuts and pastes it and sends it to her. And he sounds like the most romantic, understanding dude ever. And he's, a kid. So yes, I agree with you. You don't want to do that if you want to be authentic with your wife, with your significant other. But, there's, again, as long as it doesn't violate your values and as long as it's close to your voice and as long as you take a look at it before it goes out the door, I mean, why not let it do 99% of the work before you can fire off some stuff there?
Oh my gosh. This episode is going down in history for multiple reasons. One, including, I think, the first South Park mention ever on a She Sells Radio episode. So
yeah, talk about it.
All right. So I got to ask a favor. Because I can't tell if it's John's long-windedness or my ADHD. I can't remember the original question. I know we're going to talk about the humanity parts. And what was the first question?
So let me prompt you, Richard. I have one follow-up for John, and then I'm going to prompt you again with the question. So we're high level, we're talking like right now, what are the use cases that you're seeing for AI in your business? How are you using it? But before, super quick, I want to just circle back to something John said. So John, can you give an example if someone has never use ChatGPT or Bard in that way, and you talked about the importance of the prompts, which I understand is really critical, right? Like the quality of the prompt or the question will determine the quality of the answer. If I wanted it to compose a really great email to you, like what would be the prompt that I would put in specifically, just so someone can hear what that would sound like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have the inputs, right? So you have to have the person and the company that you want to reach out to. And so you would say, write an email to LinkedIn, Richard Harris, and then I would put his LinkedIn profile in there. From the Harris Consulting Group, put their website in there about how I, John Barrows, can help support Richard's growth initiatives based on some either social posts he's just sent or, some news about his business, and see what it comes up with.
Interesting.
That's not a perfect one, but it gives you the sense. Like you say, basically, go look at this person and their company, and then write an email as if it was coming from me about how we can best support their growth efforts. See what it comes up with. And then it'll go out there and it'll research and it'll find some stuff. Now, again, be cautious because again, ChatGPT is a timestamp thing that only goes up to 2021. So it's only going to be pulling. That's why it's not great. That's why there's some of these other additional tools that you have to use to get it open to the current internet, if you will.
Okay.
But those are the type of things I would write in. Or, you could take your messaging that you've already created and say, hey, could you write an email, right? If you have some elevator pitches or whatever they are, could you write an email to this persona about based on some of their priorities in today's market and how our solution can help. Right?
Awesome. I had a follow-up. I lost it. I'm gonna come back. Richard, go ahead. Tell us. You already shared LinkedIn, some of the ways that you're using it.
Yeah, I've actually had it write a contract for me.
I have heard it. Yeah, I've heard about that.
I've had it review a contract, and I've said, if my concern are these things around getting paid or whatever, what should I look for in this contract? I'm also, I'm not hiring a lawyer. I'm sure if I were big enough, I'd have a lawyer. And if it's a big enough deal, I'll have a lawyer look at it, right? Like John, I know John has some much bigger deals, so I would assume he's got, he has someone on staff, actually, I know that does some of the stuff for him. So those are the interesting places that I think it's really helpful. I did use it to write a song to Britney Spears, and I said, oops, I missed it again. And I had it write a song like I missed my goal, like I missed my quarterly goal. Oops, I missed it again. And then our buddy Scott Lees had it do something too. So for a song, I can't remember. Maybe it was a Dylan tune, I'm not sure. But those are the places I see it. I've always been a fan of whenever I would negotiate with someone from anywhere really, in the South, in New York, or Boston, or in Germany or Italy or whatever. I would go to Google and say negotiating with someone in Boston, right? And it would tell me how someone has written that article. Now I can get an aggregation of that information, right, from different places and different sources. So I'm not spending my time clicking on 12 links, right? The little magic blue links. So that's a way that I like to use it in a healthy way. And so I'm always trying to look at what am I doing that I hate about the job? And then I'll ask ChatGPT, or I use Bard a little bit more. What suggestions do you have to make this faster? Right. And so that to me is an important piece. And then I've asked for people, I'm going to go like, how should I talk to, like John said, but a little, how should I negotiate with this person versus, how should I approach them? So those are the places in my business I've been using it. And I have used it to write some blog posts. I have used it to get me started on some things. And then I still have to go spend 20 minutes, 10 minutes editing it. But part of that, it could go faster if I wasn't such a fucking perfectionist trying to outsmart the machine. Right? I know plenty of people who take it and be like, okay, 3 minutes scanned. Yep. Change that. That's it. Right. But I've done that too. I don't have a problem with it.
I actually think that's a really interesting takeaway that I have not used it for before. Of like,
what I should do? I just thought of this. So I use Active Campaign, right? I wonder, it would be cool, which is my newsletter. If I could put in a ChatGPT and say, what is consistently making my highest open rates, and have it tell me.
How would you?
I don't know. I need an integration because it needs
some sort of integration.
50 different emails and check the data, right? You're going to need some kind of integration. I just thought about that now. Like that to me would be really helpful. And I could see a lot of people using it to do something like that. So
totally. Which ties back in, and I want this to probably be like, from here, we'll talk more about the humanity piece of this, but final question, just off of what you both said, because that was really interesting to think about. So the tools that Bard, ChatGPT need to integrate with, John, you talked about like ChatGPT needs something to make it relevant past 2021. Richard, the example you just brought up, there need to be something to integrate with Active Campaign. Are you all comfortable mentioning like some of the other tools you're using or things you're seeing for integration? Like what else? Again, just think about someone who's like a novice here. Like what other tools do you need to make this successful?
Yeah, I don't know the technical details. I just know
Got it.
there's a lot of different tools that I'm looking
Mhm.
at, whether the ones that I personally have yet to integrate like a ChatGPT with said tool to be able to do
Mhm.
this. But there's a lot of tools out there that are free or whatever. But Bard is a good one, right? Because Bard is that is the internet, right? So that is leveraging OpenAI, but it's also pointing at the entirety of the internet, which is why it's probably better than ChatGPT in a lot of ways. But the integrations, I think that's where what you look for is you look for the different segments that you can automate, that you can use this tool, and you use the free stuff that's out there. And then if you can find that efficiency, if you can find that real world use case, it's going to save you a bunch of time. Then you go look for the integration component to it. And whether it's an integration or a separate tool that does the same thing, but has the integration already built in, because all these big companies specifically are integrating it anyways. Like Microsoft, I actually think Microsoft's going to come out on top, way out on top on this one. And they're the sleeper that nobody's talking about, because I saw their release of OpenAI into Office 365. And you're now in your PowerPoint presentation, and you can just tell it, hey, put together a PowerPoint presentation for my upcoming meeting with the board of directors or whatever, and it'll do it for you.
Wow.
Excel, hey, go look in this Excel sheet and create a chart that shows this, that, and the other thing, and it'll do it. And it's all going to be native in the email client, right? Because Office 365, that's where people live. That's where I know I live. I haven't moved. I don't have Gmail. Gmail's doing the same thing though. Gmail is going to embed it into their Gmail system. And so if you think of that, like I worry for a lot of the platforms, point solutions, all that stuff, because a lot of these big ones who are embedded with where we work, right? Anytime you ask somebody to go outside of where you work on a day-to-day basis, you're losing adoption just by asking me to click one step outside of whatever it is. So if you can come inside my email and live in there and help me write and everything else, then I think a lot of these other companies are going to be in real trouble. So that's why I think it's about looking and finding the operational efficiencies in the areas that you can use this, and then looking for either a potential tool that can integrate or a platform that already has it or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I just live in this world, and I hear, John say Office 365, and I'm like, I know I'm technically older than John, but he acts older than me.
Just wait, man. Just wait. It's coming back. It's a way better user interface.
Cool again.
and I agree with him. It's interesting. I think there'll be 2 or 3 leaders out there, and then there will be a lot of niche players, right? Like there's going to be somebody for code development that chat can't, someone's just going to get better at it, right? And they'll probably build it off of Chat GPT and then just make it accelerate and stuff like that. Do you want actual tool names, or do you want to know what the tools do? Like
I think actual tool names and what they do, and like brief synopsis would be helpful.
So and so it is a race, right? So I think Gong and Chorus, will do it. Outreach and Sales Loft and those places. I think Atrium will do. I think Atrium's got a real unique play. There's a new one like Atrium, and I'm an advisor for, so I always like to let people know that. And then there's a new one I'm an advisor for called Wonderway Coach, and that's the one that's actually you can have your call recording, and it'll give feedback to the rep, coaching the rep, like so that remote sales team piece where they can get some level of feedback, as opposed to taking a Gong call and having to listen to it and do those things. And I think the integrations there will happen. That to me is like one of the best ideas, and I'm hoping those guys. I'm an advisor, but I'm hoping. I've yet to see anybody who has that yet. Like I even asked John before I told him what it was. Did you see? And it's like, no. I think the biggest thing people need to look out for if you're thinking about AI and any of these tools is it really AI, or is it just aggregating a bunch of shit? Right? Because they're all claiming they have AI. Right. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, you got a link, right? Yeah, sure. If you can help me write an email, that's AI-ish, right? But is it? I mean, I guess it is, so it's, and the funny thing is, it became public in November. It got legs in February, like in the general public, so to speak, started to get the legs. And now we're here in May of 2023, and in 3 months it'll change again. Like, and it's
Absolutely.
just because it just accelerates, right? It's Skynet. Like, this thing's just going to keep learning.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. This
so
is, gosh, I've learned so much from both of you in
yeah.
this. And I think I want to wrap with just one question for each of you.
Mhm.
And because I want to be mindful of everyone's time here, but just tying it all together here. So it's kind of like we've talked about ways in which this could go a dark path. We've talked about some really cool uses that you're both seeing, both for SDRs, for entrepreneurs. Let's talk about bringing it home. Like, how do we continue to bring value, right? What does that look like? John, you talked about like changing what value looks like.
Mhm.
Richard, you're focused on humanity of sales. And I want to give you each just like a minute. Let's call it a minute in case you go a little over, but let's call it a minute to talk about what you're thinking about now, what you're coaching your clients to do now before we wrap and tell people how to connect with you.
Yeah, you want me to go or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, John, go ahead.
So I think the keys to work on right now are, and I know it sounds old school, but fundamentals. So like we've over-engineered the sales process over the past 10 years. And
Yes.
we've looked for we've looked to solve the problem with technology, and now it's getting exponentially worse. And the problem is that now that the clients don't want to talk to us more and more, and the reps don't have the fundamentals to fall back on, they're in trouble, right? They don't know how to have a conversation. They don't know how to have empathy. They don't have business acumen. They don't have genuine curiosity. And that's what I think we need to try to figure out a way to teach them. I think tools like OpenAI and ChatGPT you can use to improve your business acumen, but you can't just ask it the question, then regurgitate the answer. Like, you ask the question because you're curious. I actually think you can use ChatGPT to teach curiosity, right? Keep asking, keep asking, keep asking. So those are the three things that I'm encouraging my, clients that I work with to focus on is business acumen, curiosity, and emotional intelligence. And being able to use these tools and actually show the client how to use these tools. Most other clients are in the same exact spot as we are, as far as, as far as all this AI stuff. They have no idea what's going on. So bring ways that you can show them how to increase their efficiencies by using these free tools, even if it has nothing to do with what you're selling them. Right. That's like, we got to start getting out of the realm of adding value just based on what we have to offer with our product and services. We need to open up about how we can add value in ways that has nothing to do with us, to show people certain things, because that's what's going to leave an impression. If I can walk into a CRO's office and show them, hey, by the way, can I show you the research, what prompt I used to write that email to get your attention? Like, can I show you how to do that? And by the way, if you do business with me or not, like, just go ahead and have your team start playing around with it. Like, that's going to leave a far better impression than telling you I'm the greatest sales trainer in the world and everybody's, leading provider of and all that crap. So I think that's the way we got to start looking at it.
Well, I'm just making sure that I get a full 2 minutes like John did, because it's like a presidential fucking debate over here. So you let him go over. So I expect the same courtesy in this last 20
Bring
seconds.
us home, Richard.
You're using up your 2 minutes, my friend.
Yeah. Of course, I forgot the question again. No. I agree with you, with John 100% about the EQ. That's the piece. And in the training I do, and I know John does this too, I very specifically talk about psychology and how humans make decisions, because I think that's a real important thing. And so much, and I think we all know, so much of what we teach is life skills as much as it is sales skills. Like, there's nothing we teach that you can't apply in life, right? Other than maybe, I don't know how to send even a cold email. Like, you could still, well, how do I communicate with somebody? But so the benefits I see around the humanity side is that it should help us improve our EQ. So let's say I go ask ChatGPT, how do I do this? And then I go do it in a sales call. Well, now my EQ just went up. Right? Like, I can use this to self-learn. And then if I do it 3 or 4 more times, or if I try something and it doesn't work after a couple of times, well, this didn't work, Bard or ChatGPT, what other suggestion? Like, so there's, and that alone, just the act of having ChatGPT, I think helps with the curiosity piece that John's talking about. Like, it allows you a place to go be curious in a different way and get a more human, natural response. And so for me, it's about that EQ piece that I see. It's such a great piece that can subliminally get back to the humanity piece, right? It's not about, like I said earlier, it's not about the cold email, right? Like, that's where we are right now. Go deeper and we go deeper into the sales funnel and the sales cycle, it's going to bring up the EQ. And I think that's going to help. And I think that's going to help a lot of early career reps accelerate in ways that just wasn't, didn't work for us. Like we didn't have that opportunity, right? Like, you guys are still younger than me. Either of you know what microfiche is? Like how you had the library.
I have heard of it.
There you go. There it is. I've heard of it.
It's
like I'm going to tell my kids, I'm going to say, hey guys, go use this fax machine. They were like, what's the fax machine? Why would
you're in the Dewey Decimal System world, my friend.
Right. There you go.
Guys, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I know we're like right at time. Normally I would go on and on with recaps and takeaways. I want to honor everybody's time. There's a ton I got out of this. I know everyone listening did as well too. John, tell everyone where they can connect with you. Then Richard, tell everyone where they can connect with you, and we'll wrap.
Yeah, just check out my new site. It's jbarrows.com. So letter J, B as in boy, ARROWS.com. Everything there. You get free content and all sorts of ways to connect with me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and everything else.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Richard.
The Harris Consulting Group. You got to put you can also find me at Richard Harris on LinkedIn. I'm the one with a little goofy trademark. So you can find me there. And then here's the part that's always fun. Write this down: 415-596-9149. My real cell phone number. John and Elise have it. They could probably verify it.
Yep.
I would encourage you to text me to say, hey, I'm texting you from She Sells Radio. So I will answer the call or respond, but get a hold of me. The funny thing is I put this out everywhere. Nobody ever fucking calls. Nope. Like maybe one.
I think that's a fitting ending, the personal touch to a really powerful conversation about AI. So hey guys, thank you both so much. Amazing as always. And to you, my listener, gosh, go connect with John and Richard. I promise, you will be your education levels will be insane from what you learn from them. You'll be inspired, you'll be motivated, you'll be educated like we talked about today. So go connect with them. Thank you both again for being here. Thank you to you, my listener, for being a part of the community. We'll see you on our next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks.